Minister Elvira Quesera. We are so pleased and happy to be here. Dear friends, dear participants, what I want to do in about 5 to 7 minutes is to share with you some reflections which I have been privileged to observe from New York and from other places around the world, hoping that this will give us a even stronger sense of purpose and direction. Just 10 days ago, we had at the United Nations the MDG Summit, where the private sector played a critical role. And indeed, the good news is that the international community, governments are increasingly willing to listen to you and to also call upon you to play your part and to also show the way forward, not least in partnerships. That is really good news. On the big picture where we stand on climate, the minister gave us a great overview. Add to that the fact that we are in the midst of a huge global transformation where economic power is migrating to emerging markets, where the fallout of the financial crisis still is policy priority number one in many capitals, where indeed the cooling down of the climate debate and climate gate, as it has widely been dubbed, still is shaping public perceptions. So where are we and how can we mobilize the private sector contribution to the climate and development agenda? I think there's much more good news out there than is widely communicated. Part of that may well be that the major lobbying associations around the world still have a capture on policy making and much on what dominates in the communication domain. That is certainly true in a number of critical markets around the world. But at the same time, the lobbyists who basically represent short-term interests and short-term gains, often within the very same companies, we know firsthand that the engineers who are working on solutions for the long run already are integrating sustainability. They already fully know that natural resources of any kind will be appreciated over time. They already plan for the future. So we have a huge disconnect here, on the one hand, between lobbying and on the other hand, on what is going on. And I want to give you a few encouraging examples. So this is not just isolated cases. Consider that the capital goods industry that is doing the energy production, distribution, and application wholeheartedly is integrating sustainability, where energy efficiency, integrated solution, smart applications are now really growth industry number one. And that is good so, and we should recognize that much more strongly, because something fundamental has happened there already and is happening on a very, very large scale. Secondly, consider that the automotive industry, which until recently showcased, say, hydrogen cars of the future, of which they knew that they probably never will be produced more than 3 for expositions. Now their research departments seriously are working on electric mobility of all kinds and all concepts. In other words, the future is in the making. Technological change and long-term trends, demographics, the growing middle classes, stress on natural resources, clearly augments and puts a premium on resource efficiency, greenhouse gas emissions, and also on development. Consider also that, for example, in Italy, all of a sudden, 800 villages now have their own renewable energy supply. They did so not because of top-down regulation, but they did so out of an economic rationale to achieve independence of energy supply and actually to have a surplus. And they're proving at local community that energy independence based on the renewables is not a dream anymore, but can be achieved. Consider also that in many emerging markets, what the economists called frugal innovation, new solutions are taking shape. The nano car of Tata, for example, in many ways is an environmental car because its efficiency is far above others. And many other applications are taking shape in this important and growing space in the world economy. So we need to have an open mind, for what innovation is and how it is indeed already shaping the world. The other big issue where we have seen a major shift since Copenhagen is that the link between climate change and development is increasingly seen by the corporate world and also, hopefully soon, by politicians who traditionally have negotiated climate separately from development. But the link between climate change, natural resources, water, agriculture, and so forth is increasingly clear and finds its way into strategy and operations. Just 4 months ago, we had our own summit in New York with 1,000 CEOs, and one of the important reports, which still is circulating around the world, is based on an interview with 800 CEOs on the question of sustainability and the future. And the surprising news to all of us was that over 80% of the CEOs, when asked, how has the financial crisis impacted your sustainability activities? Over 80% have said, yes, we have cut philanthropy and a few other activities, but on sustainability, on the long-term trends, we actually have done more than before. So the financial crisis, while it has had a devastating impact in many respects, the long-term imperative of sustainability has not suffered. And indeed, an amazing 90% of these 800 CEOs have said they do expect that sustainability in the future will be more, not less important. These are encouraging findings, and while they're not yet fully reflected in implementation, they give us a taste on where the paradigm shift actually is happening already. I can also share with you the fairly good news that our own platform, every month, 100 new companies are joining, despite the fact that we're also delisting up to 50 for failure to disclose on material issue in the non-financial domain, environment, social, and governance. And that is good news because the business world, in many ways, is getting the long-term signals, but asking increasingly for governments to continue to work towards a level playing field and to work harder also at national and community level to create the incentives on technological standards, building, transportation, and so forth, and on economic incentives to reward long-term good performance. And this is what I hope we will walk away from here, from this important meeting, that we have a new mission and sense of nurturing solutions, of building on what works in order to scale it up so that we can demonstrate to the public at large, to policymakers, that indeed environmental stewardship is a way to go, that sustainability as a concept is a viable one. We accept the science, the 2% Celsius degree we have to keep under, and the energy demand that is growing and doubling within 2 decades, while at the same time the reduction of greenhouse gas emission by 50% has to be achieved, can be done if indeed we find the solutions and work forward. So this is what I hope we will walk away from here. It is certainly not a sprint, it is a marathon. Many of us who have been deeply engaged in Copenhagen, who initially were extremely frustrated and felt that the issue is walking away, I think we should reharness all our abilities, reharness what are our strengths, and focus on solutions and build bottom-up, while at the same time supporting policymakers in their important quest to find solutions. So in this sense, I want to thank all of you, especially the business participants who have come here, because you have many solutions, and we really are here to support you. We need to showcase much better that solutions are viable. They're not only scientifically necessary for reasons UNEP rightly reminds us again and again, they are also technologically possible and economically viable. So I hope that this summit will give us a new sense of purpose and direction. Thank you very much.